So Joe Biden today announced that there's a bipartisan deal on infrastructure. But is this anything really worth celebrating? Let's talk about it in today's video.
Economists, left, right, and center, independent Wall Street forecasters, they all say that these kinds of public investments mean more jobs, more workers participating in the labor force, higher productivity, and higher growth for our economy over the long run.
I'm Mike Reiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. If you share my concerns, maybe you could like this video and subscribe to this channel and click that little bell that will notify you when I'm posting a new video. So there's celebration all over Washington that we have a bipartisan deal for infrastructure. Hooray! $579 million to be spent on infrastructure, supposedly, according to a bipartisan group led by Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema and Susan Collins of Maine and other senators. Hooray! Now, what's interesting about this deal, though, is a couple things. Number one, it does not include 10 Republican senators. So if this was supposed to be a deal that was going to somehow get around the filibuster, it does not accomplish that goal because it doesn't have the 10 required extra senators that need to vote for it to get around the filibuster. Secondly, this $579 billion in infrastructure spending is a fraction of what's really needed. The Biden administration proposed over $2 trillion in infrastructure spending, which frankly is probably even a little on the low side of what needs to be done, given the state of the infrastructure in our country. I suppose it's better than nothing, but just barely. It really is nothing more than a Band-Aid. And the third thing that's of concern is that this proposal has no funding mechanism for it. So here are all the newspapers saying, hooray, we've got a bipartisan deal here, congratulations. Except for the fact that whenever liberals and progressives propose anything, there's all sorts of screaming about, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? Not so with this. This includes no funding mechanism. Hooray! They basically have said, we're going to spend a bunch more money and not come up with ways to pay for it. Go more into debt. Now, I'm not going to be one who's going to argue that we need to become deficit hawks all around or anything like that. But what I am going to say is, number one, there needs to be some equity in how the newspapers and other journalists approach the legislation that different parties propose in Congress. So if the journalists are going to say to the liberal Democrats, hey, you need to show us how you're going to pay for this, then they should also say that to the bipartisan groups or even to the conservatives, including the right-wing Trumpists who passed the tax giveaway to the rich. The second thing I'd like to say is, what kind of compromise is this? What did the Republicans really give up? They don't have 10 Republicans voting for it, which is what's required to get around the filibuster. They also aren't agreeing to increase funding in any way. There's not going to be any taxes on the wealthy or anything like that as part of this package. So basically, they're spending money, getting all the benefits of money being spent with none of the difficulties and challenges of coming up with ways that they're going to come up with the money in the first place. And finally, this was an opportunity to start to deal with some of the inequality that has increased across the country. One of the ways that can be done is by increasing taxes on the wealthy. And that had been something, frankly, that had been pledged by the Biden administration. However, what have we seen thus far? This is a package that includes nothing, no taxes. So, in other words, we have this bipartisan group protecting the wealthy from additional taxes. How is that fair? So my attitude about this supposed bipartisan deal is it's nothing worth celebrating. This is a deal where the American public gets virtually nothing and the Republicans gave nothing to get it. And my fear is what we're going to see now is Democrats say, oh, we pass now this package. We don't need to pass another infrastructure package, even though this is just scratching the surface of what needs to be done across America. So if you're concerned about infrastructure and inequality like I am, then join me in contacting your members of Congress and senators to let them know that this bipartisan package isn't much of a deal for America. What we need is a real infrastructure package, the kind of package that President Biden had proposed, which includes higher taxes on the wealthy and $2 trillion in spending in all the different ways that infrastructure needs to be addressed in this country. If it makes Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema happy to say that they delivered some kind of bipartisan compromise, they can pass this too. There's no skin off anybody's nose. Certainly not any skin off the nose of the Republicans who are supposedly agreeing to this deal. But let's not then use this as an excuse not to pass what is really needed for America. So if you agree with me or disagree with me, I'd love to hear your comments down below. And in the meantime, if you'd like this video, subscribe to the channel and click the little bell that will notify you when I post something new, because I do try to post pretty frequently. And I will see you in the next video, and let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.